Good morning. It's Bruce Phares here with Windermere Real Estate in Seattle. It is the 6th of April. It's Monday, and we're about week 1.5 into the shelter-in-place edict here in Seattle, in Washington State, that is. I just spoke with Mark Besta, one of our partners, who is sequestered down in Palm Springs. It hit while he was down there, so he is stuck there. And down there, it's a $1,000 fine if they catch you on the street without proper gear on. So a little bit different mentality down there. I thought today, before I went too much further, I would drop a little social message in here from Stephen King, the writer, and he says this about artists. I know a lot of us are taking advantage of those great gifts that artists provide us, and let's not forget that it comes at a cost for them as well. All right, let's move on. Let's head into it. This is what we do. We track listings from 145th down to Othello, water to water, on a daily basis, and we provide a daily, weekly, and monthly update. And that's what today is. Today's actually all three combined, so it's a little bit longer than usual. I try to keep these dailies, I'm trying to keep those down to 3 minutes or less. But and then the weeklies are usually about 5 to 7 minutes. But I'm gonna drop the monthly, and the reason I'm doing the monthly is I want to have a little bit more information about how we compare to the last 5 years. And I think that's going to be really important, because I've been looking really very granularly at what's going on a daily and weekly basis. And I was pretty surprised when I took a look at the numbers and started comparing them to March and April of 18, 17, 19, 16, and 15. It was kind of surprising. So first thing I always like to do every day, let's take a quick run at this, because when I first looked at it, we were looking really ugly today, and now we are up almost 5%. There you go. I'll talk to you in a couple hours and we'll see what that looks like. This is an interesting article, and this does impact real estate right now. If you've been understanding that the primary investment markets that are providing the capital and the liquidity to the mortgage banks, they have been really concerned about what's going to start happening in the future. So there's going to be talk now about what the Fed can do to keep them from getting in trouble as all of these forbearances start taking place, where people are not paying their mortgages and not servicing their debt. Let's see if we've got a rate here yet. Nope, they still haven't given us the rate for the day. So we closed out at 3.52 on Friday. So let's go ahead and jump into the numbers really quickly. And I'm not going to get too deep into it. I have, here we go, week 2. Daily receipted, weekly. So let's go over here to the I can't talk, forgive me. Let's go over here to the newly actives. And that's the first thing I'm looking at. I'm looking at newly actives basically against the 6-day off markets, those properties that go off market within 6 days or less. So we've had just ebb and flow taking place here. Here's the week prior to the shelter in place. Here are the couple of days right prior to the shelter in place. Here is Thursday. That's the day that it happened. These are actives per day. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at a particular type of property, trying to keep it fairly consistent. So we had a big surge right there, and then it dropped down. It came back up. People were surprised. And at the same time, the governor issued a new declaration, I guess, that real estate agents all of a sudden were semi-essential rather than non-essential. And so they're allowed to do showings one person at a time. So you have one agent and one other person in the house at any given time, all by appointment under fairly stringent guidelines. I was actually in Seattle showing some property this weekend under those guidelines. So our 7-day oncoming, I'm not going to worry about that right now. Let's take a look at our totals. We have the highest number of totals per year for this year on Friday of last week at 507. That's the total pool of inventory that was available. Now, jumping over to our 6-day off markets, you can see here, since this point right here, it's pretty much just been hovering right below 5 a day in terms of 6 days off market. And we compare those against how many are coming on market, and we end up with a ratio, which is right over here, 6-day to new active weekly, 32% roughly. So we dropped from a year high at 66%, but I think that was a direct relationship to the surge of properties that were taken off market right as we had the shelter in place go into place. And then this is what I'll call the low tide then being pulled back out again. We'll probably see these numbers start coming up. With that, let's go on to our next thing here. This is what I'm now looking just at the weekly basis. And I'm going to draw your attention to the newly actives. And we started doing this particular graph at the beginning of last year. Here, let me grab my little highlighter again. So if I just look at our 7-day, up every week we take a snapshot of what's happened that week. You can see our number of new listings. So as of today, here's last week's at 82. There we are, 184, 165, and then lows here, the bright greens, 73. And that is right at the beginning of January. Now we are, this bright blue is holiday. That's the New Year's and Christmas. Here is November. That would be right around Thanksgiving. Forgive me, I'm reading this with a little bit of light here coming in from the side, so it's kind of making it hard to read. But you can see our numbers here, and there's a high number at 220. What was it? Where were we at now? We are at 184 as a few days ago, and 82 right now. It is really bopping up and down. But if I look at this, it's not really too completely strange compared to the entire last year on the 7 days, and totals kind of the same thing. Let's see when we've had some high numbers. We're at almost 400, or excuse me, almost 500 here. Let's zip down here. Here's a moment in time. That was Thanksgiving, 630. Here we are in the 800s, the 900s. There we go. Let's see if we cross 1,000. Yes, we did. So these are a couple of our high moments. This is the post July 4th surge took place, and we ended up with inventory in that range. Now, if I go over here and take a look at our 6-day off market and look at my relationship of those, let's go to that high surge there and go over here. We were in the 30 percentile there. I mean, it's jumping around, but you can see these different numbers week after week, but basically under 50% in terms of newly off markets that took place in 6 days or less. So not that radically different, even though our numbers are different. And here's an example of that. We just started tracking another form of Northwest Multiple Listing Market Watch, and here we are at 122 new listings in the week, and 134 taken off market by pending. That's 110% pending to new active relationship. And yet here we are, half of that 122, 64 new actives in this last week, 71 newly pendings, and 110% to 111%. There's not that much differential. Let's go do this another way. And this one was really illuminating. So what I've done here is I'm slicing. Let's take a look here where my, hang on for a second. Here we go. This is from the Northwest Multiple Listing. This is a great tool. This is InfoSparks, and allows me to look at the bottom left corner here, sales price, new listings per month, new pending sales per month there in the middle, price per square foot down below, days on market. Those are the things I kind of pay attention to most. And then over here, middle left, percentage of list price, percentage of original list price. And that's really an important one. So I slice these up, and you can see our different graphing here. And I'm not going to drive you through them, but just give you a sense that we've gone through. And what we did was we grabbed figures for April of 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19, and 20 in terms of newly coming on market, volume, things like that, days on market, and so on. And then what we did is we took a look at April sales prices to look at those that closed in April but probably came on, 90% of them came on in March. And that'll give you some interesting numbers. And that's what I've got for you here. So when I click this, this is really amazing. So I'm going to take you into this column. Let me get my highlighter going here. These are the dates, obviously 15, 16, 17, etc. So listed, we had 354 in 15, 383, 395. Here we hit the 400 mark. Then we have the highest number at 441, and now we're back down at 363. But we are not that different than we were in 16 and 15 and even 17. We're kind of averaged out in the middle of that, right? Now, in terms of those that then went pending in that same time frame, we've got those numbers. I won't waste your time with it because this is what's important. Our pending to listing ratio, and it's 104% at that point in 2015. This is when the recovery was really getting off the ground, and we started seeing a fairly high consistent, and that's over a month's time in that time period. And 87, 91%, 81%, 84%, and 81%. That is March right there of this month. And we were already being affected by COVID in terms of the news, and yet our numbers aren't that different. I am really curious to see what we'll look at, obviously, at the end of April. Median market time, this is stunning to me. This is 7 days on market, 7777, like I need to read it to you, right? 6 days on market, average market time for those properties in March, right? You'd think this number would have been higher. It is not. Median next month's sale price. So here's where I start looking at April of each one of those years of the 15 through 20. And these are in thousands. So median sales price for those properties that closed in April using that slice that I'm doing, 544.5 thousand. I'll just average, even up, whatever they call it, 544,000, 620,000, 722,000, 810,000. 750. Now this is when, remember, there's a market correct. If you've been following me, there's a very, what's the word, extremely visible market correction that took place in May, June, and July of 2018, and then brought prices back down. And so here we are. By the time we get to 2019, for that March, that correction had taken place, and we were at $750,000 on average. And I believe we were looking at, I think 70 to 8,000 is what I saw overall. So this is just March to March. It'll be different if we look at April. And then we don't have the numbers for April for 2020. So if I'm looking at March's price, they're at 780. So you can see that they're on the return from that number. If I went back to that graph, we would see that as well. Median next month's price per square foot, which is also really important because who knows what the size of these houses were. So we got 308, 364, 418, 488, 441, 474. Though here's our drop, 488 down to 441, and then recovering back up to 474 in March. Median next month sale price, original list price. So this tells me how hot the market was. And remember, we were looking at average market times of 1 week, basically that whole time. 2015. 101.2, then 102, then 107.1, and 107.7. I'm going to pull up a graph in a second and show you what happened there. This is where the craziness really took place. And then we're back to 100% and for last year. And then in March, we were at 101.2. And I think we just looked at my graph and we saw that oh, I'm sorry. We're not doing prices here, so it didn't make any difference. We were looking at dates and relationships and time. Hang on for a second. I'm going to bring back another graph for you. So what I wanted to show you very quickly, and I'll pull that graph up, is we are looking at these 2 years where we had just radical appreciation taking place. And let's go find those. And here they are. So I've got 4 different graphs here that I'm looking at, and I do this every time I do one of these, and I do 2 or 3 of these a day these days. I'm breaking down, if you follow my graph up here, I've got Seattle overall, which is the black line. We've got the green, which is Seattle Central, North Ballard to View Ridge. And that's that swath that just basically runs across from, Ballard over to the far end of View Ridge and about 85th, I think, maybe 90th that I've got graphed out. Seattle Central, that's basically Capitol Hill, Madison Park coming down, Leschi, Madrona, and down to about I-90. And then finally, I've got the south end, I've got I-90 heading down to Othello, and that's in the purple, right? So more often than not, the highest numbers are going to be the Capitol Hill, Madison Park, Leschi, Madrona, and that's what we've got on the top of the graph. The green, however, is what I call the canary in the coal mine, and that is, to me, what I call the core of the sun. What's taking place there is pretty much emanating out in terms of the more homogenized marketplace, and actually affecting all the market all around Seattle, or at least a litmus test of that. So that's our greens, and then our blacks are Seattle overall. That's 145th down to Othello, as I'd said. And of course, the purple I mentioned is I-90 down to Othello. So follow me over here on the far left. I don't need to do my highlighter because you've got my thing here. I'm going to put this up above so it isn't in the way. This is January of 2015. And the market is in recovery and it's fairly intense. And I'm going to follow the green line because that's going to be the numbers that matter, that give me the core of the sun again. So 307,000 at that point in time. And between January and July, we go from 307 to 359. I'm going to start rounding up and down. So we go from 310 to 360, right? $50,000 in that time frame. And that was pretty intense. Market chills out a little bit. And then we hit December, January, we are at 361, right? 360. And in the course of that time, between that and let's put it up to here, April, we go to call it 400. So that's 40 grand right there. It mellows out a little bit, comes down a little bit. And then right here, we're going to have 16 and 17. We're going to watch what takes place here. 16 is at 385 in November. And here comes 2017 roaring in. And between 385, I'm taking it all the way up to there, July, 385 to 460, okay? Call it 380 to 460, just round it to make it easy. There's your first really big hit that the market did. Hit's not the right phrase. Surge, let's call it the surge. That was sobering to a lot of people, and that caused a lot of buyers to get pretty nervous about getting into the marketplace and getting a home, getting a property, and it also brought in a lot of investors. The market then did a typical chill out from July through the end of the year, and yet here we are in October, and let's look at that number, 453, and call it 450, October, and we're going to go up to crest of market right here at April. And remember I mentioned May and June. That was the that's when the market decided to correct. So between that point of October at actually it started really in November, but it's shown here in October, 450 to $515,000, $65,000 in just that. What, 6 months? Is that right? My math is terrible when it comes to calendars. Now watch what happens here. We then have the market correction of 2018. And that dropped down to beginning of 2019. I'm trying to say it. And you can see here the three bottom lines, both the south end, the Seattle overall, and the mid area, they start to balance out a little bit. You watch the green line, and that's the canary. So it said, yeah, we're going to not do that so much. And then we started another push upwards in January of 2020, and that led right up until March, right? So you can see that differential. That is 460 to 485, heading upwards. That's what I wanted to point out, and we had just looked at that at the, forgive me, that graph, wherever that might be. That's right here. So that's the 107 and the 107, right? 2017, 2018. Now this is in March and April. So at this point, that's 107.7. We haven't yet hit May, June, and July, right? And that's when this number will change. So if I were to be slicing this completely different, we'd be seeing a different set of numbers from May going on. So that is it for this and this month's look, and I would suggest to you, you are welcome to subscribe. You can do a number of different things here. I'll show you really quickly here. On this chart, you can actually access this chart on your own if you would like and just look at it anytime. There's no problem with that at all. And you can do that by, where it is, right here, tinyurl.com/Seattle Real Estate Daily Stats. Simple, Seattle Real Estate Daily Stats. And that'll get you onto this chart. You can watch this because we fill this out every morning and we make comments over here. Now they're slightly cryptic, but that's what we do. You can also see our most recent video by clicking on this. Let's go ahead and do that and see where it takes you. It should take you to our YouTube channel. There you go. And you're able to take a look at our most recent thing here. And you can of course subscribe there. But what I recommend you do, and that is this right here. And you can click on this. And let me get the name of the URL. That is tinyurl.com. Everything I do is tinyurl.com. Seattle Real Estate Market Updates, one word, Seattle Real Estate Market Updates. And if you do that, you're taken to this page right here, a MailChimp page. And you can decide whether you want to get your daily update. And if you're, like most of our clients that are active, they're doing dailies. They're watching what's going on. They're listening to us on a daily basis. A lot of our more professional clients or service providers that depend upon that they're in the industry in some fashion, a lot of them subscribe to our weekly. And then those of our clients who have closed on a property and they're just homeowners and they want to keep their eye on the market, they subscribe to our monthly basis. And for a number of people, you can also, once you're on our monthly, you can go ahead and ask, and we can create a little specific thing just for your area. And you can click into that and it'll give you an email once a month that says, here are all the properties that have come and gone in your neighborhood, and here are the statistics, et cetera, right? So, but if you want dailies, you got it. If you want weeklies, you got it. If you want monthlies, you got it. And that's by signing up here. And so again, to get to that, you would, I'm just getting used to doing this. We're just getting up to speed on a lot of these things. Seattle real estate market updates, or this week in Seattle real estate, or Seattle real estate daily stats. Any one of those will get you to something like this that'll help you get to something else like that. Also, let me point over here on the right-hand side. If you're still with me, I'm stunned, but you know what? That's what we are. This is data. And this is how, by the way, I'm going to go off on a tangent. Almost daily, I'm called upon to do a market analysis for somebody's property out there, whether it's an attorney or an estate or one of our clients or. And these are the tools that we use to get things off the ground. So we'll create an initial, what I'll call market analysis. There's another term that's supposed to come in the middle. I can't remember, forgive me. And I'm using these different graphs that are right here. So let's click on one of them. Let's go to the median sales price median sales price 10-year. Let's go take a look at that one. And again, I'm using that 4 sets of locations in Seattle. There she is. And when you click through to it, you are able to actually get an interactive real-time thing. So you're able to take a look at all this stuff yourself as well. And we certainly encourage that. We're quite collaborative with our clients and our what I'll call our sphere of influence, our database. So with that, I'm Bruce Phares, Windermere Real Estate in Seattle. I hope this was of help. And stay safe, stay well, stay healthy, boy, and contribute to our responders and our medical people. We have a niece that is in New York who just went over there, and she is volunteering in the hospital. She's a PA, and it's incredibly grim. So with that, look forward to meeting you in person or talking with you, and let us know anything we can do to help. Take care. Bye-bye.